This week's video is yet another viewer request, and it's another movie I've never seen before. It's Clive Barker's Nightbreed from 1990, an American dark fantasy horror. The movie was written and directed by Barker himself and based on his 1988 novella, Cabal. Incredibly enough, the writer and director of last week's review, The Brood, David Cronenberg, stars in this week's movie, as we follow Aaron Boone, played by Craig Sheffer, an unstable mental patient who is convinced by his doctor that he is in fact a serial killer. Tracked down by the police, his doctor, played by Cronenberg, and his girlfriend, Laurie, played by Anne Bobby, he finds refuge in an abandoned cemetery populated by a tribe of monsters called the Nightbreed. It will come as no surprise to anyone who has followed this series that this movie was a commercial and critical failure on launch, later achieving cult status after release to home video. Similarly to Life Force, much of the blame for its failure has to lie with the studio. In fact, pretty much all of the blame has to lie with the studio in this case. Following on from the massive success of Hellraiser, Barker's prior film, 20th Century Fox were desperate to push the film as a bog-standard slasher rather than the study on the fringes of society and how man and monster are not at all dissimilar that it actually was. One studio executive refused to watch the entire movie, saying it disgusted and distressed him. The trailer was sent to the MPAA 12 times and rejected 12 times, with them not allowing any footage of the monsters, finally being approved with footage that represented 5 minutes of the final film. They used the tagline, "Laurie thought she knew everything about her boyfriend. Laurie was wrong," which has almost nothing to do with anything that actually happens within this film. They even consistently refused to approve Barker's cuts for the movie, in the end taking it away from him and butchering it, cutting over an hour of footage from his original edit and runtime, and reshooting new scenes to emphasize the character of Decker, as Barker himself said in an interview. So Hellraiser was what Hellraiser was. It was a $900,000 movie, and there wasn't anything I would have done differently, but Nightbreed was taken away from me. Its meaning didn't chime with the producers. The thought of making a movie in which the monsters were the good guys was just financial suicide in their minds. As it turned out, what it was in fact financial suicide to try and sell the film as a slasher and chop the story up, as the film had nothing to set it apart from the many other slasher films readily available at the time, and the movie only grossed $8.9 million on a budget of $11 million. The studio went as far as to argue that there was no point showing Nightbreed to critics because the people who see these kinds of films do not read reviews and possibly can't even read. The critics who did get to see it unwittingly highlighted the effects of the studio's massive interference, with Henry, I am really sorry, you have a Polish name so I'm not going to say it, writing in his review for the Toronto Star, "Nightbreed might have been a monster movie milestone if Clive Barker's directorial abilities had kept pace with his skill as a master of British horror fiction. Unfortunately, Nightbreed probably will be remembered as much for its haphazard plotting and underdeveloped characters as its delightfully daring concept." Over the years, Barker had been very vocal over wanting to recover the unused footage so that he could release his original vision without studio interference, and this actually happened in 2014, being released by Scream Factory on DVD, and this version is known as the Director's Cut, containing nearly 45 minutes of new footage and adding 20 minutes to the theatrical version's runtime. It is this cut of the film that I will be reviewing, as I could not get a copy of the even longer Cabal cut that was released in 2017 in a very limited run via Barker's website. They actually released 2 video games expected to form a trilogy on the Commodore Amiga and ZX Spectrum. Due to the poor performance of the movie, the 3rd game was never made. Apparently it is the actual game that introduced my friend to the movie and not the other way around.
You're saying he's dead?
Not lying down dead, my friend. Walking around in my fucking cell dead.
So having seen this for myself, I can safely say that the studio executives are clueless, incompetent boobs who seriously misunderstand film. It is pretty obvious that the movie's actual message is that it matters what is underneath the surface, not what is on the surface of a humanoid. The humans are largely subversions of our expectations, with the psychologist, usually a character we are almost pre-programmed to trust, being the antagonist of the movie, brilliantly, coldly, calculatingly played by Cronenberg. He uses menace whenever he is on the screen. However, my biggest of two gripes lie with this character. His motivations are never made clear. Why is he doing any of the things he does throughout? I wonder if this was clearer in the original longer version of the movie. The police are comical levels of cruel and sadistic, taking great joy in killing and torturing the Nightbreed. The Nightbreed themselves on the outside look like hideous monsters, but essentially just want to be left alone to live their lives underground, separate from the humans. An obvious parallel could be drawn between Barker's homosexuality and the lives of the Nightbreed. Forced to live underground for fear of attack from society if they appear in the open, which when this was written and produced was still very much the case for a lot of homosexuals. The Nightbreed, although quite grotesque at times, and nothing I haven't seen in something like Farscape, a late 90s early 90s sci-fi show that had various grotesque alien species and some similar themes. In fact, with a few cuts, ironically to cut out the slasher elements of this movie, the studio tried to push as its selling point. I think this would have been a perfect young adult horror fantasy classic that I would have loved to have watched when I was in my teens. As an adult, I think even at 2 hours long this felt like it needed more time to explain its story. As it stands now, the main antagonist's motivations are unclear, and the Nightbreed's backstory and lore is very truncated and unclear also, and there's not enough gore or violence to really push that aspect of it. Nightbreed would be a wonderful Netflix TV series, where you'd have 10 episodes of an hour each to go into the backstory of all the monsters and the human characters alike, expand the lore and provide motivations for Dr. Decker to be quite as obsessed with Boone as he is. And that is borne out in what Clive Barker himself has had to say about Nightbreed. There's a corner of all of us that envies their powers and would love to live forever, or to fly or to change shape at will. So when I came to make a movie about monsters, I wanted to create a world we'd feel strangely at home in. I wanted to create a horror mythology from the ground up, developing characters that would live on in sequels. He in fact planned originally for Nightbreed to be a trilogy of films. One thing I always love and did about this were the practical effects. Yes, some of them have aged a little bit badly, mainly the optical effects, that were fairly cutting edge at the time, just don't stand up to modern standards though. But the practical effects to create the Nightbreed are utterly brilliantly disgusting and charming in equal measure. You can't beat the early 90s and late 80s for that. The movie as a whole has a wonderful atmospheric feel, especially that of Midian. It manages to be both familiar and grotesque at the same time, using matte paintings and miniatures along with soundstage sets to create a surreal sense of realism. So that was Nightbreed, a potential classic of the fantasy horror genre ruined by studio interference, and essentially banished to obscurity as some weird, uneven, disjointed wannabe slasher film, until being resurrected on DVD and Blu-ray via a number of director's cuts that restored the original vision. Before you go, I know most of you have already gone, but before you go, yes you, I actually have a schedule for the next few weeks for the Look Back series of videos. Next week, Monday the 24th, will be another double feature, featuring 2 John Carpenter films, Escape from New York and Escape from LA, which weirdly are both planned and requested by a viewer. Then the week after Monday, the 31st of August, will be Trauma's The Toxic Avenger, because it's a favourite of mine, and you can't do cult movies without doing Trauma at some point. So, like, comment and subscribe if you want to watch those.